4:45 p.m. Fluorescent lights buzz above me like flies over roadkill. I'm sitting in a room that smells like printer toner and stale ambition. Across the table, Dave, my boss of 11 thankless years, is blinking like someone told him gravity got cancelled. To his left sits Kelly from HR, clutching a manila folder like it's a newborn she's not quite sure she wants to keep. Janet, Dave begins, clearing his throat the way people do when they're about to ruin your life but don't want to feel guilty about it. We've been evaluating departmental efficiency metrics, and you're optimizing synergy. Got it. I cut him off before he can regurgitate the rest of the script corporate emailed him 5 minutes ago. I can already see the bullet points burned into his eyes. Streamlining, cost efficiency, restructure. No one says we're screwing you because a spreadsheet told us to, but that's what it is. They hand me a box. Beige, too small to hold a decade, but apparently just the right size for what they think I'm worth. I stare at it. Then I look at Dave, who still can't quite meet my gaze, and I wonder how many unread emails he has from me warning about the biometric system, about how it was meant to be temporary, about how they never gave me the budget to fix it properly. I stand slowly. No tears, no tantrums, just the kind of eerie calm that usually comes right before an electrical fire. As I reach for the door, I toss one final breadcrumb, laced in sweet poison. Just so you know, the server authentication is still running on that old biometric protocol I set up. You'll probably want to migrate that over the weekend. Dave squints like I just recited Latin. Kelly glances at him, then back at me, her expression somewhere between confused and constipated. I walk out before they can say anything dumb enough to make me feel something. Hey, by the way, since you're already this far into the story, can I ask a tiny favor? 97% of you are watching without hitting little red subscribe button. I know, commitment is scary. Helping me hit my first 10K subscribers would mean more than Dave's half-hearted goodbye handshake. And trust me, that bar is subterranean. I pass my old cubicle on the way out. The guy who took 2 weeks to figure out how to unjam the printer offers me a limp wave. I don't return it. He'll be screaming my name by Monday. By the time I hit the parking lot, I feel the weight of the sun start to dip behind the glass facade of the building, that big dumb monument to mediocrity I kept upright with digital duct tape and sheer caffeine. My keycard doesn't work anymore. Symbolic. Funny thing is, the system that deactivated it? Yeah, it still needs my face to work. I slide into my car, that sad, stubborn Honda with the cracked dashboard and emergency cat litter in the trunk. As I start the engine, I glance once at the building behind me. They just fired the one person holding the only keys to the kingdom, and they didn't even ask where the lock was. The drive home felt like swimming through wet cement with a smile painted on. I wasn't crying, not even close. But every exit I passed looked like a place I could pull over and scream until my throat gave out. Instead, I gripped the steering wheel like it owed me money and let the Ohio highway roll under me like a funeral procession no one RSVP'd to. The sky was the color of a soggy manila folder, fitting. I cracked the window, lit a cigarette. The ashtray already looked like the aftermath of a Vegas divorce. I took a drag deep enough to make my lungs file a formal complaint and exhaled slowly, watching the smoke swirl like all the respect I never got from that office. You know what's funny? No one ever sees IT, not really. We're the ghosts in the server room, summoned only when Outlook stops sending or someone fat fingers their password too many times. I was the woman they called when their fonts looked weird, when they downloaded a virus clicking some fake Amazon gift card ad, when Dave's laptop started sounding like it's breathing. That one turned out to be a mouse living in the fan. True story. And through all of it, I stayed. 10 years of fixing problems before they even knew they had them. You know how many firewalls I configured? How many ransomware attacks I stopped? How many times I kept them from being turned into a headline and a lesson? They didn't care. I remember the budget meeting. Oh yeah, crystal clear. Some bright-eyed intern suggested switching to a cloud-first model, and everyone nodded like they understood what that meant. I brought up the aging server rack, originally purchased during the Bush administration, and suggested we finally replace it. Maybe even upgrade the authentication systems, before they crumbled like a stale granola bar. Dave smiled like a man who thought a VPN was a vitamin and said, "We just don't have the resources for that right now." Right, but they had the resources for a break room popcorn machine and those ridiculous standing desks that no one used, so I made do. I built a workaround. I implemented the biometric lockout not out of malice, but out of desperation, because it was either that or let their data rot under a cascade of brute force attacks from Belarus. I even documented it. Sent emails, made recommendations, filed reports. They ignored everyone. It wasn't revenge. Not then, it was survival. But now there's a quiet little seed in my chest that started to sprout. It's not rage. Rage burns hot and quick. This is colder, slower, more deliberate. It's the feeling of being overlooked one too many times and realizing maybe being invisible has its perks. I pull into my driveway. My house is quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't ask anything from you. I sit in the car a moment longer, engine ticking as it cools down, and stare into the middle distance. You know what no one ever asked? No one ever said, "Hey Janet, what happens if you leave?" Well, they're about to find out. Saturday morning. I woke up before the sun, not because I was anxious, though I was, but because my body had forgotten how to sleep past 6 after a decade of 3 a.m. server alerts and urgent password resets from Dave's iPad. I stood in my kitchen, barefoot, wrapped in an old hoodie that smelled like dryer sheets and resignation. Coffee brewed slow and steady, filling the air with that burnt bean comfort I didn't know I needed. Then I powered up the pressure washer. Not out of rage, out of purpose. There's something poetic about stripping grime off concrete while your former employer's internal systems are collapsing like a Jenga tower at a toddler convention. I wasn't gloating. Not yet. I was scrubbing, deep cleaning, removing a decade of moss, algae, and psychic debris. I imagined each swipe of the water blade erasing another overlooked contribution. Firewall configured on Christmas morning. Recovered Dave's files after he spilled La Croix on his SSD. Set up two-factor authentication only for them to bypass it with post-its. The more I cleaned, the calmer I felt. My patio started to look like something from a Home Depot commercial, minus the happy marriage. I turned off the washer, wiped my face, and stood back to admire the freshly sanctified cement. It gleamed, not unlike my conscience. I didn't touch my phone all day, didn't check emails, no Slack, no Teams, no desperate "Hey Janet" quick question messages. I buried it under a dish towel and let the digital world scream into the void. That silence? Delicious. Sunday, I tackled the pantry. Alphabetized every spice jar, wiped down every can, and tossed expired sadness like artichoke hearts 2017 into the bin. My body moved with a rhythm I hadn't felt since before they started calling me tech wizard. Like it was a compliment instead of an excuse to dump 5 people's jobs on my plate. I found 3 bottles of soy sauce and exactly 0 self-pity. By noon, I had an emotional clarity that bordered on psychopathic. Not numb, serene. Like I was sitting on a hill, watching a forest fire I didn't start and wouldn't stop. And somewhere deep inside that smoke, I knew someone had finally tried to reboot something they shouldn't. Still, I didn't check. Let them sweat. By Sunday night, my phone was vibrating in pulses, voicemails stacking up like unpaid bills. I turned it face down, poured myself a glass of Pinot Noir, and sat on my freshly cleaned patio with a blanket over my lap and mittens curled beside me like a judgmental loaf of fur. The night air smelled like wet leaves and consequences. I watched the stars, listened to the chirp of crickets and distant tire hum. The world kept turning, utterly unaware that somewhere in an office park across town, a dozen grown adults were screaming at their monitors like angry toddlers at a vending machine. Revenge? No, I didn't lift a finger. That's the beauty of it. When you've been the silent backbone of a digital kingdom for 10 years, all you have to do is stop. And then wait. Let them try to fix it without the ghost. Monday morning arrives without fanfare. No alarms, no corporate pings. Just the low gurgle of my coffee maker and the soft creak of an aging house that's finally exhaling with me. I wrap both hands around my mug like it's a sacred relic and step out onto the patio that now glistens like a polished headstone. My throne, my altar, my holy ground of quiet revenge. The sky is that buttery soft gray Ohio does so well, muted heavy, promising rain or redemption. I sit in my patio chair, blanket across my knees, mittens at my feet like a tiny, disinterested sphinx. Somewhere down the street, a garbage truck lets out a mechanical groan. The world is waking up, but not their world. Their world is already screaming, and I won't even look. I sip slowly, like each drop of coffee is a meditation. My phone sits face down on the kitchen counter inside, vibrating every few minutes like a dying cicada. I don't move, I don't twitch. I let it happen. I want it to happen. Because somewhere right now, the first poor bastard just clocked in, sat down, and hit the power button on a machine they assume is loyal. Screen flickers on, cursor blinks, then nothing, then something. I picture it, that confused little squint, the tapping of keys, the futile jiggle of the mouse. Then the reboot, the triple sigh. The call to Dave, who's probably already sweating through his company logo polo. And somewhere between the second, "Have you tried unplugging it?" and the 12th, "I don't know, it just won't let me in," real panic starts. Because this isn't a glitch. This is a haunting. The biometric lockout protocol I installed was never flashy. It didn't announce itself with sirens or skull and crossbones. It was elegant, quiet, a system of silent thresholds and checks that relied on one very simple fact. Only I could approve access. It was meant to protect them. Now it protects me. I picture Kelly from HR, squinting at her screen, tapping the keyboard like it insulted her mother. I imagine the marketing guy, what's his name, who always wore ironic socks and couldn't open a PDF without texting me, frantically Googling how to fix computer on his phone while his desktop refuses to obey. I imagine Dave finally realizing something isn't right. It must be so loud over there. Phones ringing, meetings failing, panic bubbling through khaki corridors, and here I am, watching birds pick at the seed I scattered yesterday. Blue jays, mostly? loud, aggressive little creatures. Fitting. One of them flaps onto the back of my chair and stares at me like it's trying to decide whether I'm worth the trouble. I raise my mug in salute. Mornin' chaos, I say softly. It's not vengeance. Not exactly. It's the absence of obligation. The pleasure of knowing I no longer owe them my breath, my time, or my genius. And every minute I don't pick up that phone, the value of my silence grows. I lean back, let the warmth of the mug seep into my palms. Let the empire rot. This patio is my cathedral, and today I worship the sound of nothing. At exactly 9:15 a.m., the silence fractures. The first buzz is soft, barely noticeable under the hum of my kettle boiling for cup number 2. I let it pass. The second one follows a second later, sharper this time. Then comes the third, like a dog whining at the back door after tracking mud through a house it never built. I walk to the kitchen and glance at the screen. 3 words. Janet, it's chaos. Below it, a string of frantic emojis and a follow-up from Mason, the junior graphic designer with anime hair and a heart too soft for that toxic cave of beige walls and management jargon. Nobody can log in. The screen's there weird. Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay. I stare at his message like it's a telegram from the front lines. And then it starts. The flood, buzz, voicemail from Dave, first of many. I don't play it yet. I want the moment to steep like strong tea. Instead, I set the phone down, pour my water over a fresh bag of Earl Grey, and stir slowly, listening to the voicemail icon blink at me like a ticking bomb. I press play. Janet, hi, listen. We've got a situation here. I'm not pointing fingers or anything, but the network is, something's very wrong. I don't know if maybe you still have credentials that are impacting the system, but the login process is completely locked. The entire office can't get past some kind of image, some message. His voice cracks. I don't even know what it means. Our client files, Janet, if this is you, please call me. We can work something out. He's bargaining now, already. The second voicemail comes in as I sip. Janet, this is serious. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but legal is telling me to document everything. If this is your doing, there will be consequences. I hope this isn't how you want to end things. I smile into my mug. I want exactly this. See, they thought firing me was like tossing out an old printer. Unplug and replace. No one thought to ask what happened when the printer was the power source, the firewall, the architecture, and the ghost in the goddamn machine. Another voicemail. I don't play this one. I can already imagine the tone shift. Desperation frosted with faux authority, trying to sound in control while the building's digital soul collapses around them. I check Slack out of morbid curiosity. I'm no longer a member, of course, but Maria from accounting, sweet, quiet Maria who always left a peppermint on my monitor when she'd borrow my keyboard cleaner, found me on Signal. Her message is just this: it's bad. Really bad. The whole place is melting down. Hope you're somewhere peaceful. And then another one. I miss you already. They were idiots. You didn't deserve this. That one punches through the armor just a bit. I stare at the message for a long time before setting the phone down again. Guilt flickers, but only briefly. Maria will be fine. She's too smart and too steady to go down with the rest. The ones who never listen, never saw me, never read a single one of my flagged reports. They're the ones circling the drain now. I step outside again, into the weak morning sun, just in time to see a blue jay dive bomb a squirrel off the bird feeder. The squirrel squeals, offended, and bolts. I let out a snort. There's an ecosystem to everything. IT too. When you remove the keystone species, things fall apart fast. And right now, that office is a dying forest. When I've stopped tending. It came in at 9:42 a.m., just after Dave's fourth voicemail, which I didn't bother opening because I could already hear the flop sweat soaking through his collar. But this one made me pause. Maria L., I hope you're okay. They were fools to let you go, just that. No question, no favor, no veiled panic hidden behind false cheer. Just kindness. From the one person in that office who never asked me to fix a thing, yet always brought me a slice of lemon cake on my birthday. The kind with the sugary glaze that sticks to your molars and makes you feel 7 years old again. I stared at her message like it was a relic dug from beneath the rubble of some ancient civilization, intact, impossibly, untouched by the carnage I'd engineered. I sat back down on my patio, phone in one hand, guilt like a slow leak in the other. Maria. She used to stay late, not because she had to, but because the numbers mattered to her. She was the type who triple-checked vendor invoices even when no one asked her to, the type who brought in her own space heater when HR said the thermostat is fixed. She once snuck me a latte during a quarterly budget call because she knew I hadn't eaten that day. She was never part of the rot, and yet now, she's inside the blast radius. I hadn't thought much about collateral damage. This wasn't meant to be a scorched earth campaign. Not really. I didn't script some grand system meltdown or plant a logic bomb waiting to detonate on my way out. No ransomware. No sabotage. All I did was nothing. I stopped holding it together. And that nothing? It was enough to start a slow, beautiful collapse. But Maria's message flicked a nerve I'd buried under sarcasm and coffee. It reminded me of all the good ones, the few decent people tucked into the crevices of that crumbling company. People like Mason, who never once talked down to me, or Janelle from reception, who used to set aside packages so they wouldn't get stolen by Brad from procurement. The ones who didn't use me like a walking tech manual in a cardigan. They didn't deserve this. But the company did, because it never protected them either. It just used them quietly and visibly until they broke or gave up. Just like it did to me. It's not that I wanted anyone to suffer, but I knew, deep down, that the only way to expose how brittle the entire structure was to remove the one person silently duct taping it all together. And now the duct tape was gone. Maria sent another message a few minutes later. Don't answer. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you did. We all saw it, even if they didn't. I swallowed hard. Took another sip of tea that suddenly tasted like ash. Guilt curled up in my ribs, purring like a cat with claws. It would pass. Maria would survive. Mason would find another job, probably one where he wouldn't be the only designer doing 3 people's work for half a salary. Janelle had a side business making custom candles that I always thought would take off. The good ones, they'd land on their feet. It was the rest I wanted to see flailing. The ones who looked through me like I was a server rack on legs. The ones who thought tech meant magic. The ones who now, finally, understood that not all fires come with smoke. Some just flicker quietly behind glass until the oxygen runs out. I texted Maria back. Thank you, really, keep your head down today. I think the worst of it's still coming, and it was. Because the message on their screens, they hadn't even seen the real punchline yet. I held out as long as I could. Truly, I did. But by 10:27 a.m., curiosity had sharpened into something unbearable, like a loose tooth you can't stop tonguing. I tapped the browser open on my tablet, the one I rarely used, and logged into an old burner Twitter account I'd made back when the office was experimenting with influencer campaigns, and I wanted to stalk the interns anonymously. The handle was something like at Spice Rack Janet, fitting now in a poetic kind of way. I typed in the company name, slowly, like a surgeon prepping for a risky incision. And there it was. First tweet hit like a shot of espresso to the soul. Massive outage at company name. Full lockdown. Internal systems frozen since 8:45 a.m. Text baffled. No comment yet from leadership. 15 retweets, nothing major. Just a whisper in the wind. But I kept scrolling. A reporter from a local business rag posted a thread, hearing chatter from sources inside company name that the entire firm has been digitally paralyzed. Apparently the only IT administrator was laid off Friday. They've lost access to client files, HR systems, even basic logins. Developing story. #tech fail, it was the next one that did it. I laughed, out loud. A loud horse bark that startled poor Mittens off the patio railing. It was a blurry photo from someone inside the office. The camera quality was garbage, probably taken with one of those cracked iPhones Dave always said he was going to upgrade next quarter. But even in the haze, you could make it out. A sea of monitors, rows and rows of them, each one glowing with the same image. Mittens sprawled on my old desk, paws curled, eyes closed in absolute, unbothered bliss. Sunbeam halo around him like he'd just descended from a nap into sainthood. Below him, in perfect centered white text on a slate gray background, your access is being managed by the new head of infrastructure. He is currently on a break. All inquiries will be addressed after his nap. The tweet's caption, major tech meltdown at company name. Source says they fired their only IT person on Friday. Every screen is frozen on a picture of a cat. #blessed #techkarma #Janet Wasright. It was already pushing 8,000 likes. Over 2,000 retweets. I scrolled the replies. A few coworkers, probably using burner accounts themselves, were chiming in. We told them not to let her go. Janet was the system. She warned them, repeatedly. A reply from a stranger, this isn't sabotage, this is poetry. I couldn't argue. The public humiliation hit sweeter than I ever imagined. I didn't plan for this part. I never imagined it would spill beyond their office walls. But seeing it unfold, watching the company name turn into a trending punchline, was like sipping aged whiskey and realizing you hadn't forgotten how to taste joy. I refreshed again. Local news outlets were picking it up now. Critical tech failure paralyzes local marketing firm. Sources say a rogue system is controlling all internal operations. One anchor even quoted the Mittens message on air. I shut the tablet and leaned back in my chair, heart steady. Not racing. Not giddy. Just right, because for once, the world got to see what I saw all along. That without the quiet ones, the ghost labor, the duct tape heroes, the women who never raised their voices but kept the lights on, everything breaks. And sometimes it breaks loud. The call came in at 11:13 a.m. from a number I didn't recognize, area code local though, and I knew before I picked up it wasn't Dave. Dave's voice had already burned itself into my voicemail logs, a sad mixtape of regret and administrative breakdowns. No, this was someone higher up the food chain. The kind of voice that only leaves a corner office when forced by fire drill or public scandal. I let it ring twice. Then I answered, Janet speaking, a beat of silence. Then a voice, all bluster and bourbon breath, kicked in like it thought it was still in charge. Miss Lewis, this is Peter Grayson, CEO of company name. I believe we have an urgent issue that requires your immediate attention. His tone was the exact blend of furious landlord and used to getting his way. Probably the kind of guy who thinks saying circle back is a personality trait. I didn't respond. I let him feel the weight of that silence. He stumbled on. We've experienced a highly disruptive technical failure this morning. Been told by multiple team members that this lockout is connected to a system you previously configured, which appears to be operating independently of any current administrator access. Is that accurate? I sipped my tea, still hot, still perfect. It's not inaccurate, I said, he huffed. Let me be clear. If this situation is in any way being intentionally escalated by you, whether through deliberate inaction or otherwise, we will be forced to explore legal remedies. This has already caused significant reputational damage to our brand. Our clients are losing access, I finished for him, because the biometric protocol I installed 3 years ago, after your board denied a $9,800 infrastructure upgrade, was never replaced, despite 3 formal recommendations. All documented, all emailed, all ignored. His voice faltered. Be that as it may, you had one IT admin, I continued calmly, was managing endpoint security, data recovery, backup protocols, and internal user support for over 90 employees. You laid her off, without documentation handoff, without redundancy, without even asking what she actually did. I didn't make that decision personally, he snapped. No, I said, you just signed off on it. He switched gears like a man trying to reverse a sinking yacht. Janet, look, we clearly underestimated some things. That's obvious. But I'm willing to discuss a consulting arrangement. Just to stabilize things, a few hours of your time, we can negotiate a generous rate. The desperation was leaking through his teeth. And what happens after I fix it? I asked. You shuffle someone into the role who doesn't understand the system, slap them with 6 extra responsibilities, and forget the lesson? His voice softened. We don't want to fight you, we just need this resolved. I let out a breath through my nose. Calm, colder than ice. Peter, I said, I warned you all repeatedly. I offered solutions. I built contingency plans. You chose to ignore everyone. I'm not retaliating. I'm not hacking. I'm not doing anything. This system is automated. It's self-regulated, secure, and tied to a single access authority. When you decided to discard, a long, ragged silence stretched between us. So you can't fix it? He finally asked. Voice smaller now? I smiled. I won't. There's a difference. Another silence. I imagined him sweating in a glass-walled conference room, legal team hovering, PR consultant Googling how to spin paralyzed by cat photo. Then I ended it. You didn't value my work, I said, calm as a glacier, so I automated it. The system is now fully managed. I'm afraid I can't help you. I hung up. Then I blocked the number. The masterpiece wasn't born from malice. It was born from a quiet afternoon, a sunbeam, and a particularly photogenic loaf of fur named Mittens. I remember the moment perfectly, 3 months before the layoff when I still gave a damn. I'd come home early after a network migration that went so smooth it made me suspicious. Mittens was passed out on my desk, head tucked into his paws, tail curled like a comma. The light hit just right, so I took the shot. Loaded my DSLR, cleaned the frame, adjusted for warmth, post-processed it until every whisker glowed like it had a tiny halo. That photo wasn't just a picture, it was serenity incarnate. The opposite of every chaotic, fire drill-laced day I'd spent under those godforsaken fluorescent lights, and now it lived on every screen in that office. 57 desktops, 8 conference rooms, reception, the CEO's twin monitors, even the ancient printer kiosk someone had hacked to run Windows XP. All of them displayed the same image. Mittens, eyes closed, curled in a halo of golden light on my desk next to a sticky note that said, "You got this." Beneath him, in soft white calibri, centered with surgical precision, was the message, "Your access is being managed by the new head of infrastructure. He is currently on a break. All inquiries will be addressed after his nap. His compensation is 12 cans of salmon pâté per week. You are already in arrears." It was perfect. Not cruel, not aggressive. Just a mirror held up to their own incompetence, wrapped in digital silk and cat hair. The best part? It wasn't even a system failure. The machines were fine, the network intact, the files all there, but the interface, the face had changed. And until the new head of infrastructure was properly compensated, nobody was getting past that screen. Somewhere in the office, they were probably debating whether this constituted ransomware. It didn't. No encryption, no payload, just an image, a barrier made of fur and pure distilled disrespect. I stood in my kitchen, drained the last of my tea, and tapped my banking app. My severance, light as it was, had landed. I transferred it to savings, labeled the transaction, stupid tax refund. Then I picked up my keys, whistled for Mittens, and headed to the pet store. We were overdue for a splurge. He rode in the passenger seat like a king, surveying his new territory. I bought him a new fountain water bowl, 3 bags of pâté, and one of those ridiculous window hammocks he always seemed interested in but never committed to. When we got home, he jumped into it without hesitation. Settled in, closed his eyes. Nap mode engaged. I looked out over my patio, the same spot I'd watched the chaos unfold from, and let out a long, slow breath. Not peace exactly, not forgiveness, but closure. The bridges weren't just burned. The riverbed was salted. The GPS still thinks the company exists, but it doesn't. Not in any way that matters. And me? I report to a new boss now. He pays in purrs and naps. And unlike the last guy, he never underestimates me. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit him.